At this hour, more undocumented immigrant families preparing their move from Texas to California. And the question is, will they get a reception like this?
You don't know where are they going to go? Are they going to come over and steal my car? You know that. Are they going to go and take that space in the classrooms away from the kids that live here?
Not. They are children and they have
That's
rights.
right. We have children too. We have kids. They have kids.
Really dramatic moments playing out on the border. Angry protesters and counter-protesters met almost 150 immigrants, mostly children, with their parents in Marietta, California. That's between LA and San Diego. The government transferred them to relieve the crisis level overcrowding currently at the Texas border. The buses, however, had to take them to another facility in another county because of those demonstrations. The mayor of Marietta said the city is expecting new arrivals from Texas every 72 hours for several weeks.
So Michael Wiles is an immigration attorney and immigration law professor. Professor Michael, thanks so much for being with us.
Pleasure, John. Hi, Mikhail.
That situation, you know, it seems like with more and more immigrants being moved like this, we could see that situation again. Is that something we should be concerned about?
There's a deafening silence in Washington, and unfortunately a president who seems to be sending out a confused message right now. He's deported more people than any other president in our nation's history. And this is a Band-Aid effectively being placed on cancer. The kinds of immigration controls we see have not been put into place, where every president in the last 2 centuries have put measures in place to meet the challenge. And it's as if the two parents went in the backyard and the kids are fighting in the front yard. Look at the poor judgment and taste, how a nation built on the backs of immigrants. I'm a second-generation immigration lawyer. All day long, I spend time trying to help people come to this country through family petitions, business applications, and so forth. And the Wild West has created. In our city corridors, we have stacking phenomenons where immigrants and landlords are creating illegal tendencies. In the southern border, we have an underground culture, an industry on both sides of the border. We have jails that are now being used, and people have heads to the bed, and they're making money in America, and we have smugglers taking children across.
Well, and that brings us to this scenario that we're seeing. You know, some of the voices here yelling, you see the signs, return to sender. They're saying that people should come to this nation legally and not through a back door. But the fact remains, on those buses are children. We've had people sit on this very desk and say it's un-American that we would turn these children away that are facing poverty and maybe even death back home in their home nation. How do we balance those two things?
Very difficult subject. We are a nation of law, and we are a government and a nation that took great stock in our legacy of immigration.
Right.
We are all immigrants.
Absolutely.
And post 9/11, as we see with the Chinese Exclusion Acts in the 1800s, when that pendulum swings, and there's a for immigration and there's a against immigration kind of sentiment. But when you have a deafening silence in Washington, a president who now courageously is trying to do something in Congress that won't budge, you can't advance this. There are multiple truths here. The truth is,
isn't that a good point?
we are a humanitarian nation. These are children, the most vulnerable. They may have good political or criminal activity that they're seeking refuge from.
Your lawyer, what legal protection do they have on that bus? When that bus arrives in that town with angry protesters, what legal protection do the people on the bus have?
Because they're minors, legally they don't accrue unlawful presence until a later time in their life. It's not a criminal act for them to have entered the United States, and their sustained presence on U.S. soil is not criminally sanctioned.
Until what age?
Until at age 18. But it's not even a criminal act at that point. The problem is that since they are minors, and since one state doesn't have the facilities, again, they're passing the can down the hall. This is now going to go to another state that has room. And that culture, again, immigration detention centers where you're putting these poor children next to hardened criminals until they have a day in court, is just unbelievably poor judgment. Now, listen, I'm formerly a federal prosecutor. I'm formerly a mayor in New Jersey where I live. Everybody's right, everybody's wrong. Taxpayers should not be paying for this. This is not America's financial problem.
Right.
On the other hand, if we hold ourselves over as the world's cop and we are the greatest experiment in democracy, we should have a system of law that will meet and change with the times. The last time we changed our immigration laws was President Reagan, and an economy that was more robust and very different than now. And these are people, immigrants, that will roll up their sleeves and help right our economic ship. And Homeland Security is not just border control. it's taking care of our economic needs at the same time.
I feel like we could have you back and talk about this again, because obviously we can tell, the three of us, not the smartest people around, but fairly decently smart, we can't solve this, and we know that it's not an easy fix. But you made a very good point that there's no single truth. There's many truths.
This is a snapshot of America, and we have to fix it.
We want to point out that CNN's taking an in-depth look at this immigration issue with a film Documented. It airs at 9 p.m. Eastern. Mr. Wild, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you.